Welcome to our compilation of 7 modern-era battles. It's the early morning of February the 28th, 1994, and 6 volunteer pilots are on a bombing mission in violation of a NATO no-fly zone. The leader of the flight is pilot Ranko Vukmirovic from the Bosnian Serb Air Force. He and his men are in Yastreb J-21 jets, which are no match for the NATO F-16s in speed, maneuverability, or weapons. The Yastreb pilots are trying to keep below radar height, but now, with the target getting close, they're forced to ascend to 2,000 meters to start the attack run on a weapons factory. In doing so, the aging Serbian jets light up the watching NATO radars. 50 miles away, 2 patrolling F-16s are informed of the J-21's presence.
Black Flight, you have 6 bogies. BR-AA 320 for 52 at 7,000. Flanking. Copy that.
The F-16s bank towards the target. In an attempt to shorten the war, NATO has set up a no-fly zone, and the F-16s have been sent on a route to intercept. Vukmirovic gets a visual on his target and arms his bombs. The flight positions themselves in pairs, one after the other, when suddenly a transmission comes through the radio. A pit grows in Vukmirovic's stomach. He can clearly see the trails of the 2 American Air Force jets dead ahead of them. He takes a deep breath. In previous missions, the American jets have only watched and warned the enemy, but not engaged. Vukmirovic knows if the F-16s had wanted to shoot him, they could have done so from miles away. But his eyes go wide as he sees the 2 F-16s approach at breakneck speed and roar through and past the Bosnian Serb flight.
Jesus! Did you see those old Yugos?
Despite the show of force, the Serbian pilots are not distracted and keep their eyes on their objective. The Yastrebs are old tech and still use optical sights. And as the target drifts into the crosshairs, the aging planes release and drop their rudimentary but effective 550-pound bombs on target, striking them from different directions.
They dropped bombs. Understood. You're clear to engage. Weapons free. Roger, moving to engage. This is going to be shooting fish in a barrel.
At the very rear of the formation, pilot Zlatan Sirnalic watches the last of the bombs strike. The 6 J-21s turn back towards their airbase, but their speed is no match for the F-16s, who sweep in behind them, lining up their sights on the very rear of the formation. The pilot switches to air-to-air mode and selects an AIM-120 missile on his right display computer. On his head-up display, a box designates the target. The F-16 pilot gets a lock and presses the weapons release button.
Box 3.
The missile flies off from the wingtip. The AIM-120 AMRAAM radar-guided missile fires and locks onto the running J-21's radar signature, rapidly approaching its target. Sirnalic is scanning the skies for the Americans when he sees an enormous flash. He wonders if he's been hit, but then he sees the explosion on his wingman's left wing, immediately shredding half of it off. The 5 remaining J-21s turn over and dive for the ground. One of the F-16s gives chase, following them all the way down into the valleys between the Bosnian hills. Each pair of J-21s goes its own way, leaving Sirnalic completely on his own. He frantically looks over his shoulder as he flies through the terrain, catching the terrifying sight of an American fighter hot on his heels.
Fox 2.
The F-16 fires an AIM-9 Sidewinder heat-seeking missile. It locks on to Sirnalic's hot engines and chases him down across the sky. Sirnalic, flying low, skims over some electrical transmission wires. The missile explodes near the wires and his tail, cutting part of his vertical stabilizer. But he's still flying. He reports the situation, but finds his radio completely dead. Alone and vulnerable, Cernilic looks over his shoulder, expecting a second impact at any moment. But instead, he sees the F-16 turning away. Back with Mikerovich, he and his wingman push their aircraft to their limits, racing through the valleys. But the F-16 relentlessly closes the distance.
Fox 3.
He releases another AMRAAM missile, which rockets towards his target. Mikerovich is still looking across the sky to catch a glimpse of an enemy fighter when the missile flies in and disintegrates his wingman. The Yastreb explodes into flame and scrap. He breaks into evasive maneuvers once again as the F-16 fires another missile. It slams straight into his engines. The explosion shreds the fuselage and flames pour out of the holes. He wrestles the dying aircraft, pulling hard on the stick and willing it to ascend as it burns all around him. As flames engulf the cockpit, Mikerovich pulls the canopy emergency handle and ejects. The F-16 roars past as Mikerovich parachutes safely down. The F-16s continue towards the next pair of targets. They swap positions with the covering F-16 diving into action, armed with a fresh set of missiles. But their fuel is running low, and in a few minutes, they'll be forced to turn back.
Approaching bingo fuel. 2 bandits trying to escape. I may be able to get one shot. Roger that.
South of the F-16 pair, Vukmirovic and his wingman, Goran Zaric, have been forced to hear their friends taken down one by one in rapid succession. Any hope they have is crushed by the sight of an F-16 appearing over the hills behind them. The pair break formation as the American jet sweeps in. With just enough fuel left to make it back, the F-16 gets aloft.
Fox 2.
Vukmirovic sees the missile launch off the rail and turn toward him. He turns hard, trying to outmaneuver it. But it's no use. It rapidly approaches from his right and explodes just off his wing. He's stunned, but the fragmentation does no significant damage. He looks back, expecting more, but instead, the F-16 pulls off the chase, out of fuel. But NATO command has dispatched 2 more F-16s. Vukmirovic looks back up. The 2 J-21s scramble for speed, diving down as far as they dare into the valleys. They skim the treetops, racing between the hills, with the F-16s all the while shadowing them and keeping up. They look over their shoulders to see the F-16s closing the gap. There's nothing they can do to come out on top. In desperation, Vukmirovic tries a last-ditch idea. He turns straight towards a cliff at maximum speed, Zaric keeping close formation behind him. His heart races as the 2 jets head straight towards the earth. The 2 pilots pull their controls as hard as they can. Zaric is crushed down by the G-forces as the ground rapidly approaches his windshield. Vukmirovic's jet clips the ground and bursts into flames. Zaric looks back. There's no parachute. The F-16s burst through the smoke, still in pursuit. He pulls back into a dive, rushing to use the terrain as cover. But they're far too close.
Fox 2.
The missile closes the gap and explodes into Zaric's tail. His fighter bursts into flames, and he loses all control. He releases the canopy and ejects, but he's far too low. The parachute has no time to open, and he falls into the fireball of his own crashed jet.
Splash 1. There's another bandit on the radar. Engaging.
The F-16s leave the scene and catch up to another J-21 flying low over the countryside. It's Cernalic, limping his damaged jet home to safety. He's keeping an eye on his gauges when an F-16 roars past. He's filled with dread and immediately pulls on the stick. His only plan is to gain enough altitude to eject before the American can finish him off. The F-16 gets behind him and he grabs the canopy emergency handle. But then, the F-16 pulls up alongside, matching his speed. He locks eyes with the enemy pilot. The American salutes him and flies away. Out of the 6 Yastreb pilots that volunteered for that dangerous mission, 3 never returned home. Cernalic would later say, "I don't have any bad feelings towards the American pilots." This event is usually referred to as the Banja Luka incident and represents the first NATO combat engagement in its history. Robert Wilbur Wright was credited with 3 victories, the highest score by a USAF pilot in a single mission since the Korean War, while pilot Stephen Yogi Allen was credited with 1 victory. It's the 27th of March 1999. An F-117 Nighthawk tears through the dark, stormy skies low over the Serbian countryside. The pilot is Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zalko, and his mission is to bomb the command center of the Serbian Air Force in Belgrade. It's the headquarters of the force that's going to try and stop him on his mission tonight. Zalko's escorted by F-16 Vipers with missiles that can lock on and destroy enemy radar. As he approaches the Serbian border, he hears a command come over the radio.
This is Joint Forces Air Component Commander.
Because of the bad weather, the escorting Vipers are ordered to immediately turn back and return to base. He's on his own. If he's to make it home safely, he has to remain undetected. A ghost. Fortunately, he's in the most advanced operational fighter bomber that has ever flown. The Nighthawk's stealth capabilities make the 65-foot-long bomber appear on radar as if it was the size of a tennis ball, allowing it, so far, to go unchallenged in every mission. That is, every mission until this one. On the ground, an anti-air missile battery is waiting for him. It's under command of Lieutenant Colonel Zoltan Dani. Serbian spies have let him know that the enemy aircraft are coming, and he thinks today is his best chance to take down one of the elusive ghosts. Sweep the skies, Dani orders, and the P-18 early warning radar comes to life. They think at its lowest frequency it may be capable of detecting the enemy planes, but it also detects clouds and rain, resulting in a screen covered in fake signals. But looking closely, Dani sees something. One tiny dot moving through the masses of clouds. A tiny dot headed right towards them.
Duh je ovde. Uključi nišanski radar. Uključen je. Imamo 20 sekundi. Nema cilja. Nema cilja. Nastavi da tražiš cilj.
Zalko's Nighthawk speeds towards its objective. The computer preparing the drop.
Hajdemo opet. P1 I P2, traži cilj.
Dani double-checks the low-frequency radar. He can see the target. It's right in front of them. But he needs the SAM radar to get a lock.
Nema cilja.
The men scan the sky just as instructed.
Nema cilja.
Yet, the screens remain dead. But then, Zalko opens his bomb bay, increasing the Nighthawk's radar signature just at the wrong moment.
Imam ga. Fi-2 prati cilj. Fi-1 pratim cilj. Lansiraj.
Two missiles fire off the launcher in quick succession. Streaking across the sky, Zalko drops his bombs. They follow the path designated by the laser and explode. He soars past the target. It's another mission success, and he ascends to 6 kilometers. But a few seconds later, his cockpit is filled with the wail of an urgent alarm, and his controls light up. It's a lock alert. Almost at the same time, he sees the 2 missiles illuminate the clouds below him, and then break through. They're coming right at him. He immediately breaks into evasive maneuvers. He pulls his aircraft up to try and escape. He's pushed into his seat as he ascends, as the aircraft screams more warnings at him. The F-117 has no chaff, so with the missile locked on, it's entirely on the pilot's actions to try and evade the threat. Time slows. He knows it's over.
They got me.
These are proximity missiles and should detonate near the aircraft. Somehow the first missile malfunctions and races by his canopy. The second missile, though, doesn't malfunction. It explodes, sending out a cloud of sharp shrapnel that perforates the left wing of his Nighthawk. The entire left side is blasted to pieces, illuminating the night sky a fiery orange. The aircraft immediately loses control and is thrown into a wild spin. As the plane spins, Zalko is pinned to his seat and experiences severe G-forces. The spin increases in violence. Flashing warnings illuminate his controls, and a bright flame shines through the cockpit windows. As the landscape spins around him, he knows he's in a critical situation. Even ejection might prove fatal, but it's his only choice. He fights 7 Gs of force, 100 pounds pulling up on each of his arms. Fueled by adrenaline, he gets hold of the ejection handles and pulls. In the blink of an eye, the canopy is blasted away, and his seat rockets out of the cockpit. For 1.5, almost eternal seconds, Zalko free falls through the air, stuck to his chair. He's barely conscious, and he thinks that the seat's still inside the plane and that the ejection seat has malfunctioned. But then, he feels the tug of the opening parachute and sees his burning Nighthawk tumbling away into the night. The violence of the spinning wreck is replaced by a total calm. Zalko breathes heavily as he takes it all in. He's alive, but then another thought hits him.
Man, Mom is not going to be happy about this.
He knows the enemy are going to be searching for him. If he can't fall to the ground unseen, he can still get rescued and get back home with no further complications. But then, he looks up. He notices his parachute is bright orange. He might as well be waving a flare. With his hopes of going unseen dashed, he takes out his survival radio to report he's alive and well.
Mayday, 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 Vega 3-1, Vega 3-1 going down.
To his massive relief, the mayday is heard.
Vega 3-1, Magic copies your mayday. Last position?
Vega 3-1, last position in aircraft. Point after target.
Zalko sees a ditch from above. He doesn't get to say much more before hitting the ground. He's now alone, deep behind enemy lines. Zalko runs for the ditch he saw on the way down. He quickly paints himself with mud and tries to hide as he awaits rescue. News of the downed plane quickly spreads. Serbians waste no time and rapidly initiate a search. All around him, the activity gains momentum as more and more men appear. Men of the Serbian army comb the area, gradually joined by local policemen and civilians as the news spreads. Everybody wants to find him. Flashlights illuminate the fields and trucks roll past on the nearby highway. Zalko can do nothing but sit and pray. Then he hears a rustle in the undergrowth getting louder. Just outside his ditch, someone is searching. He stays still and quiet like a rock, quieting his breath. He hears panting and snuffling. It's a dog. Slowly and carefully, Zalko pulls out his knife. The dog gets closer. He weighs his options. Should he kill the dog? If he did, could he do it silently? He finally makes up his mind to spare the dog, reasoning that if he did kill it, the owner would be quick to follow. Then, to Zalko's massive relief, the dog turns, jumps up, and leaves. The radio crackles to life.
Sandio 1, Vega 3-1, over.
Zalko's eyes go wide. They're here!
Go ahead, Sandio 1. Over.
Vega 3-1, is it okay to come down there?
Zalko doesn't respond. He peeks out of his hiding spot, searching the area for threats. Flashlights shine in the distance.
Vega 3-1, if you don't answer, we're gonna try this later.
He makes his decision.
Yeah, okay. Let's go for it.
Zalko turns on his infrared strobe. As a chopper races into the area, but the strobe fails and the helicopter can't see him. He curses his luck and desperately checks for threats. He has a backup, but it's nowhere near as subtle. But it's now or never. Zalko makes a quick decision and pops a flare. Bright light spills all around him and illuminates the area, pointing out his position for the rescue helicopter and the enemy alike.
There he is!
The helicopter sweeps in rapidly as the enemy also closes in. At the same time in the distance, flashlights from enemy patrols are all pointed towards the flare. But then another transmission comes through the radio.
Snuff your flare. It blinds our night vision.
Thinking quickly, Zalko rushes to take the flare and dunk it in the mud, just as the rescue helicopter comes in to land right in front of him, and is greeted by an American rescue team.
How you feeling, sir?
Great. Now let's get out of here.
The field is blasted with wind as the helicopter rises up into the air and exits a scene with just seconds to spare before the enemy spills over the landing site. Zoltan Dani and his crew, to this day, remain the only team to have downed a stealth aircraft in combat. When talking about the incident, Dani would later say, "When it hit, it felt very good."
Kao da ste postigli pobednički gol na fudbalskoj utakmici.
The US didn't destroy the wreck, and the Serbian forces salvaged the mortally wounded Nighthawk unimpeded. And today, you can still see pieces of Zalko's aircraft in the Museum of Aviation in Belgrade. Zalko always expressed a desire to find the man who shot him down and congratulate him. He finally got his wish in 2011, just 12 years after the incident. It's morning on January 19th, 1991, and a pair of F-15C Eagles are on an escort mission over Iraq as part of Operation Desert Storm. Captain Cesar Rico Rodriguez and his wingman, Captain Craig Mole Underhill, are clearing the skies ahead of a formation of 36 aircraft tasked with striking targets near Baghdad. Behind them, there are waves of F-16s making their runs, diving with 2,000-pound general-purpose bombs. They release them and the ordnance drops straight onto the Iraqi ammunition depots. Giant explosions rise from the desert. They're expecting anti-aircraft missiles, and the F-16s pull hard up, releasing chaff and flares at the same time. But instead of missiles, the Iraqi Air Force has dispatched 2 pairs of the most advanced fighters at their disposal, MiG-29 Fulcrums. Outnumbered, the Iraqis have been keeping their distance, searching for an opportunity to strike, when they're told of 2 F-15s. Perfect targets. It's their chance, and the pair of Fulcrums races to intercept. In the F-15, Rico gets a message from his AWACS controller, Mark White.
Rico, you have 2 hostile contacts.
One bearing 040 for 35, second is 340 for 65.
Roger, we'll take the 040.
Rico chooses the most threatening target, and they turn to engage. The F-15's front-facing radars detect the contact, and it appears on their screen.
Contact.
But it's not the only warning. On another screen, A-29 appears. It's his radar warning receiver, or RWR, a device that tells him when enemy radars can spot him.
I'm being painted. MiG-29. I see it.
Rico and Mole brace for action. The two pairs of enemies, both fourth-generation fighters, have each other in their sights and are heading towards each other in a supersonic joust. Rico selects an AIM-7 Sparrow missile, but the Iraqis have a plan. They dive far below the F-15s, attempting to use the ground clutter to conceal themselves from the radar. But it doesn't work. Aboard his F-15, Rico sees the single fuzzy contact split into two well-defined targets.
I gotcha. It's 2 versus 2.
Rico selects one of the contacts and locks it in. Aboard the Fulcrum, the pilot sees his radar warning receiver light up with the wail of a lock alert, but the Iraqis have yet another ace up their sleeve. They bank to the side, and suddenly, the warnings go silent. Rico's finger hovers over the weapon's release button when the radar contacts suddenly vanish from his screen.
I lost it.
It's a blind spot in the F-15's radar. Objects moving perpendicular to them are invisible, and the MiG-29s are exploiting it perfectly. Rico's frustrated, but it's a known tactic. The enemy reappears on radar 12 nautical miles away.
Contact.
He locks it in one more time, but doesn't fire. The AIM-7 Sparrow needs him to maintain lock throughout the missile's entire flight, and he knows the enemy are going to re-enter the blind spot before the missile has a chance to catch them. Once again, the enemy disappears.
Lost it again.
The MiG-29s keep maneuvering across the sky, toying with the F-15's radar,
Contact.
constantly blinking in and out from Rico's screen, keeping 12 nautical miles of separation.
Lost it again.
Rico can see what they're doing. The Fulcrums are dragging them along. Over at the AWACS, Mark White keeps an eye on the situation. As the F-15s make their move, they leave the airspace that Mark's responsible for, and following protocol, he hands over Rico and Mole to another AWACS controller. Rico and Mole keep up the chase across the sky when suddenly their RWR beeps with alarm and starts filling with detections up ahead. It's an entire field of S-125 Neva surface-to-air missiles set up to defend Baghdad. The enemy's trying to pull them into a killing field.
They're dragging us into the city's anti-air. What are we gonna do?
Rico checks in with the strike force and listens to the F-16s making their runs. If he and his wingman fly away, then the F-16s will be definitely intercepted by the MiGs. He makes a daring choice.
Hold position. Keep pushing the bandits away until the strikes are done. Then we can get out of here.
They hold their altitude and deliberately continue heading towards the enemy trap, buying the strike force the time it needs. The RWR clicks every time the enemy radars scan the F-15s, and they hear them getting more frequent by the second. But the Iraqis still have a cunning plan. They know the Americans can see the missiles. They're not the trap. They're the distraction. A third MiG-29 charges towards the F-15s from their left side, out of view from the F-15's front-facing radar, and with its own radar turned off so as not to appear in the F-15's RWR. Despite the fight no longer in his area of responsibility, in his AWACS, Mark White continues to take glances at the developing situation. He sees the new enemy approaching the scene and immediately realizes the danger. But for some reason, the F-15s are not evading the incoming contact. They keep flying straight, even as the bandit gets within 18 nautical miles. White gets nervous. It's well within the range of the R-27 missiles. 16 miles and there's still no reaction from the F-15s. He thinks about saying something on the radio, but he worries that if he disturbs them in the middle of battle, it could make the situation worse. 15 miles and still no reaction. 14 miles. White decides to act.
Pop-up, contacts, 330 degrees for 13 miles.
It's right in the nick of time. Rico hears the call and instantly drops his fuel tanks and pulls hard towards the new contact, with vapor covering his wings. The moment his nose points towards the incoming Fulcrum, it appears on his radar.
Bogey,
Just
8
8
out.
miles away, well inside the range of each other's missiles. At the same time, the Iraqi pilot, flying blind without his radar, is informed the Americans are right in front of him. He turns on his radar, and Rico appears on his screen. With this act, the ominous 29 appears on Rico's RWR. The two cutting-edge fighters are now aware of one another and are approaching at supersonic speeds. Rico selects the target on his display and locks it in, but he doesn't fire. The rules of engagement are that all contacts detected within 10 miles must be identified visually in case it's a friendly F-117 Nighthawk. Even with the 29 on the RWR and the imminent danger, Rico holds fire and orders Mole to run friend or foe ID on the contact. But there's no time. The Iraqi selects Rico's aircraft and locks him. Rico's RWR screams with a lock alert.
I'm getting spiked.
He immediately turns upside down and dives, releasing radar reflective chaff.
I'm getting low. The terrain will confuse his targeting system.
But it doesn't work. The RWR continues screaming in his ear, warning him of impending doom as he races down from 30,000 feet at the speed of sound. Rico whips his head left and right, desperate to spot the enemy. Mole locks the target, his finger hovering over the weapon's release button as he runs an ID procedure with the help of intelligence aircraft. The seconds feel eternal as they finally clear him to engage. He's given the all clear and presses the button.
Box 1.
The AIM-7 Sparrow shoots off from under the F-15 in a plume of smoke. Rico sees it streak across the sky, the smoke trail passing between his tails. He follows the smoke trail with his eyes and finally sees the MiG-29 aiming his nose down towards him. But it never gets to fire. The Sparrow rushes in and strikes it square on the nose. There's a giant flash and the MiG-29 disintegrates, tearing apart into a black smudge of oil and parts.
Splash 1.
A wave of relief washes over Rico as he pulls out from the dive at just 500 feet high. But over at the AWACS, White can see it's not over.
Second group, north, 10 miles.
Rico scans the skies. He considers turning away. By now, the strike package of F-16s is already heading home, so they've no reason to hang about. But the enemy is too close for comfort. They could be shot from behind. They need to fight. Rico turns north, and the enemy appears on his screen. It's just beyond 10 miles, so he's clear to shoot it down. He runs an identification procedure. It's hostile. He selects the contact on his radar screen and locks the target. In the enemy plane, the Iraqi hears the lock alert and he breaks into a sharp evasive maneuver, but it makes no difference. Rico's lock holds strong as his finger hovers over the button.
He lights up as a diamond on my scope. Say again? It goes from a solid radar contact to a diamond, which tells me he's friendly.
Mole Systems have identified the contact as a friendly aircraft. In that moment, Mole is overtaken by a cold sense of dread. But Rico's confident it has to be another MiG. But he needs to prove it with his eyes. The two prepare for the fight. Rico elects to identify the target and Mole gets ready to take the shot. Rico races towards the enemy, which is coming straight towards and above him. He keeps low, letting the bogey get closer. Then he pulls up. Engines burning at full throttle. He can see the belly of the bogey right in front of him, but it's still hard to tell what it is with the bright sky as background. He holds his F-15 in his path until Rico's F-15 roars within 50 feet of the Bandit, and as he does, he finally gets a good view of the enemy's top side, with its green camouflage, which is proudly displaying the Iraqi flag.
It's a MiG-29!
Rico makes a wide turn left as he soars over the MiG. Looking down through his canopy, he sees the MiG performing a flat turn left, holding his altitude. In that instant, he spots an opening, and the fancy shooter eye formation goes out the window. It's a dogfight. He turns upside down and pulls hard on the stick, cutting into the MiG's circle. He's crushed by 10 Gs of force, pushing the F-15 to its limits. He sees the MiG roar past in front of him, and he pulls hard left to follow. Rico sees the MiG flying away, but he knows he has the advantage. The MiG pushes down, trading altitude for speed. Rico follows him, spiraling down towards the desert floor as the paths of both jets converge. Rico sees a MiG scream through the merge. He's getting closer. He pulls hard, feeling the blood rushing down from his head as he does everything to bring the fulcrum into his sights. Far above, Mole can see his leader tangling with the enemy and spots an opportunity.
I can come in. Stand by.
But Rico can feel it. This one is his. He sees the MiG coming back and they roar past one another. He almost has him, but they can't keep up this trajectory as they're rapidly running out of altitude. Rico pulls with all he has, powering through 10 Gs of force. Through the crushing Gs, he sees the beautiful sight of the fulcrum moving into his sights. Rico selects an AIM-9 Sidewinder and starts to pull, aiming ahead of the MiG for the best chance of impact. But the Iraqi pilot sees it, and a desperate last-ditch attempt, he turns upside down and pulls hard towards the ground. Rico's ready for the Iraqi to try something, but he's shocked to see the MiG dive straight for the sand. He doesn't even think of following and pulls up to the left, letting the MiG go. The Iraqi pilot starts to pull up and is crushed by extreme G-forces as his plane continues towards the ground. The sand fills his windshield as he pushes the afterburners to maximum. His MiG screaming as it pulls beyond its G limits. He's doing everything to bring the nose up, but it's not enough. And the MiG-29 Fulcrum and its Iraqi pilot crash into the desert sand. Rico's heart races as he comes down from the adrenaline high. He's won. Mole appears 2 miles off his right.
Tactical, right side.
And Rico can finally afford to relax.
Let's go home.
Cesar Rico Rodriguez would tally up 3 victories total in his career, making him tied for the top spot of MiG victories for pilots after Vietnam. We hope both pilots like our film. It's the 6th of April 2003 and 2 A-10 Thunderbolt strike aircraft soar in the skies of Iraq near Baghdad. Flight leader Lieutenant Colonel Raymond Donk T. Strasburger and his wingman Captain Greg Billy Bob Thornton are on a reconnaissance mission in support of coalition forces on the ground. But the Warthogs can't see any of the action. A sandstorm has rolled in underneath them and engulfed the entire region. The 2 aviators circle above in search of breaks in the weather, but then there's an urgent transmission from the ground. It's not good news. Their friend, First Lieutenant John Coke Bloker, tells the pilots that Task Force 269 are pinned down under heavy fire at Mathana Bridge near his position. The 1st Hammurabi Republican Guard Armored Division have T-72s firing across the Tigris River and shelling the Americans relentlessly. Americans are low on supplies and exhausted after many hours of battle. They can't hit back.
If the Iraqis cross the bridge, it's over for us. We need help.
Are you ready? Yeah.
The 2 Warthogs flip over and dive straight into the heavy sandstorm. Visibility is way below any measure of safety. On the ground, Iraqi infantry comes out of hiding and opens fire on the American troops. Coke ducks as bullets fill the air.
Duck! We need you now. I mean, right now!
Donk and Billy Bob can hear the gunshots and explosions in the background of Coke's transmission. Suddenly, the buildings of Baghdad emerge up ahead as the 2 flyers level out low over the city.
What a lovely day.
The Tigris River comes into view and they follow it north, racing for the objective, buildings zipping by either side. On the ground, Coke pulls out his rifle and starts returning fire at the muzzle flashes ripping like lightning through the haze. He relays increasingly urgent radio transmissions without wasting a second.
I confirm, no friendlies to the east of the bridge.
He's fighting 2 battles at once. Donk and Billy Bob approach at breakneck speed. As they listen to the transmissions from the ground, the outline of the bridge starts to emerge.
Break left.
Billy Bob pulls off Donk's side, giving his leader space as the target area appears up ahead. The bridge is now in clear view. Donk pulls on his stick and flies over, a wave of jet engine roar breaking over the battlefield. Donk peers over his shoulder, searching for the target, but the ground vanishes into the storm before he can see a thing. He needs to mark the target so Coke on the ground can confirm he's in the right position.
I'm dropping a mark.
He selects his rocket pods armed with smoke ammunition as he lines up once again with the river and the bridge. This time, the Iraqi anti-aircraft guns are waiting for him. 23mm anti-aircraft cannons roar to life, sending columns of tracers in huge arcs through the air. A burst of fire narrowly misses his jet. But Donk pushes on. He aims for the bridge's eastern base and pulls the trigger. But nothing happens. The rockets malfunction.
Damn it!
The bridge is coming up fast. He sees the muzzle flashes of tanks and silhouettes of vehicles as he flies fast and low over the target. Without smoke rockets or time to think, he presses flare release button and dumps a line of pyrotechnics across the riverbank. He pulls hard to the right, skimming just over the buildings as he escapes the flurry of anti-aircraft fire.
We're getting AAA and I do see the tank. I request clearance in when able.
Even through the storm, Coke sees the flares far in the distance. He knows Donk is right on it.
Donk, you're clear to engage.
Copy, clear to engage.
Donk turns back around, this time armed with real firepower. Iraqi AAA gunners frantically search the hazy skies for the source of the jet engine roar, as the menacing figure of Donk's Thunderbolt appears in the distance. The poor visibility makes aiming the hand-cranked guns extraordinarily difficult. Streams of tracers rise towards Donk and chase him across the sky, zipping by mere feet from his aircraft. But Donk is unfazed. He spots the enemy through the hail of lead, tanks and APCs firing across the river. He sees a BMP charging for the bridge. Donk fixes his reticle directly on the target and pulls the trigger. The terrifying signature groan of the GAU-8 menaces the battlefield, reducing the personnel carrier to scrap. Donk soars just over the enemy as he pulls the nose up and turns west towards Allied lines, followed by columns of anti-aircraft fire.
I have tanks on the circle, Bob.
Donk's dash suddenly erupts with warning lights. He thinks he's been hit. Donk flies away from the action as he diagnoses his aircraft, testing the controls and checking his systems. The plane's flying normally, fuel isn't leaking, and the engines look healthy. The only thing he finds wrong is that the drop-compensated reticle has disappeared from his head-up display. He clears the master alarm and attempts to reboot the ballistics computer, but it's completely dead. Out of time, he clears his wingman to take his place. Billy Bob doesn't need to be told twice.
DMOP 7-2 in hot from the south.
He turns his A-10 down through the storm and lines himself up with the river. Battlefield becomes clearer amid the haze, and he lands the crosshairs on his first target he sees, a T-72 main battle tank. The enemy tank is slammed by a deluge of armor-piercing 30mm shells. Sparks fly, and in moments, fire begins, bellowing out the hatches. He soars above, escaping the enemy fire, unscathed.
I got that sucker. He's running the west edge of the circle, boss.
Donk can't get the computer turned on, but he still has an old-school crosshair. His aim might be off, but there are problems below and he can deliver 3,900 solutions per minute. He's got to try.
Going in.
Donk charges into the scene. Tracers rip past his canopy, and several targets come into view. He lands his old-school crosshairs above them and pulls the trigger. The cannon shudders into action with its terrifying clatter. 30mm rounds rip through the earth, and he rages past above, unsure if he's hit anything.
Cleared hot.
Billy Bob races south down the river, now on his second pass. With no new targets, he sprays a short burst into the already destroyed tank, before turning his aircraft upside down. Up close, the orange glare provides no concealment, and he sees an anti-aircraft gun, supply trucks, and another T-72 firing across the river. Billy Bob is itching to tear the anti-aircraft guns to shreds, but any one of those tank shells could claim the lives of the American troops. He can't think of himself. The tanks have to be destroyed first.
Hey, I got a second T-72 eastern position of the roundabout. Confirm I'm clear back in. You're clear back in.
Billy Bob prepares another pass, but in the meantime, Donk has his eye on fuel levels. They're approaching bingo fuel, the minimum amount they need to get back to the airfield. But they calculated it on the ground before the specifics of this mission were known. Donk knows they can stay in flight for longer.
I'm recalculating bingo.
Donk checks the distance to the nearest airbase, doing the math in his head while guiding the aircraft through the storm. Meanwhile, Billy Bob is tracking the river for a third time. He now knows his targets. The area comes into view, and he's greeted by the now irritatingly familiar columns of anti-aircraft fire. Billy Bob presses on, fixing his reticle on the intact T-72. The Warthog's armor-piercing ammunition punches clean through the tank's weak roof. The T-72 explodes into a massive fireball as Billy Bob screams overhead. Up above, Donk finishes his calculations. They can lower Bingo by 500 pounds of fuel and still make it to the nearest airbase on minimum.
Revise Bingo down by 500. Copy.
Billy Bob adjusts his gauges and turns in for another run. Once again, he races up the river, ready to destroy the supply trucks next. He has no hope of seeing the single soldier on the roof. Carrying a MANPAD, portable anti-air system, the missile launches off its tube and surges into the air. Billy Bob doesn't see it coming. The incoming missile tracks and then momentarily loses its target and flies right past his left wing. Billy Bob breaks right and abandons the run, escaping west into the Allied lines. His heart's racing. He was a foot away from death.
Are you alright? Yeah.
He pushes that to the back of his mind and turns around for another run. Once more, bullets zip past his cockpit. They're getting close, but not close enough. The supply trucks come into view, and he pulls the trigger. 30mm fire tears them to shreds, their cargo bursting into flames as Billy Bob escapes the scene.
Got the trucks. Copy, I'm going in.
Donk sweeps in for another run. Still without a ballistics computer, he instead selects a Maverick air-to-ground missile and opens its camera on his multifunction display. He needs to select his target, but with the terrible conditions, he can see nothing through the camera. He has to be fast. The target area comes into view, and with it comes the anti-aircraft fire. He holds his course. The targets appear on screen and are approaching rapidly. He quickly moves the selector over to another BMP and launches the missile. It rockets off the rail and makes a sharp turn downwards, slamming into the BMP from above with a burst of flames. The Iraqis are taking heavy losses. Pinned below the oppressive watch of the Warthogs, they pull back from the riverbank to hide amidst the buildings. The American armored forces see the shelling come to an end. Lacking fire support, the Iraqi infantry attack in the rear also starts to retreat.
The enemy's pulling back. You're doing a great job.
Relief lifts the pilots, but it's interrupted by the flashes of AAA flying through the air.
Bob, one more run and we have to RTB. Let's take these guns out. Hell, it's about time.
Billy Bob turned back towards the target area, his attention set on that one AAA battery he saw at the beginning of the fight. Billy Bob aligns his reticle and fires. The anti-aircraft gun is torn apart. He turns back west over Allied lines, and through his canopy he sees a column of tracers, barely missing his wingtips as he beats a retreat. Up above, Dunk spots that second AAA gun firing right at his wingman.
D-Mob is 7-1, coming in from the south.
D-Mob, this is Advance. You're making battalion and company commander really happy right now.
احصل على المزيد. إنه أمر.
If you could continue to do that as much as possible. I understand you're taking AAA, so be safe up there, but as much as you can roll in on those targets. You're good. Good hit.
With a devastating burst, the second gun is turned to scrap.
Coke, we're at Bingo. How copy?
Copy that. Second flight of Alpha 10's incoming. Guys down there send their regards. Good work. When I see you back home, drinks are on me.
Copy that. Good luck down there.
Donk and Billy Bob leave the scene after 40 minutes of grueling battle. Thanks to their efforts, Task Force 269 suffer minimal casualties and no loss of armored vehicles. Raymond Donk Strasburger and Greg Billy Bob Thornton were both awarded the Silver Star for their heroic actions and incredible airmanship in the most challenging conditions. John Coke Blocker, an A-10 pilot himself, would be awarded the Bronze Star and the Air Force Commendation Medal of Valor. They all survived the war, and we hope they enjoy this film.
Eagle 15, put on Psy-War Op and make it loud.
It's the 23rd of February, 1991.
Shall we dance?
The 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment charges through the Iraqi border in Operation Desert Storm. Amidst the stampede of armor, Captain Herbert Raymond McMaster stands proudly atop his M1A1 Abrams, leading Eagle Troop into battle. After so much waiting, it's finally showtime. The column of American tanks drives into enemy territory with no resistance whatsoever. defensive positions are being dealt with by other units, and the poor Iraqi conscripts surrender en masse.
Stop showing off.
The 2nd ACR even comes across a group of lone and unarmed Iraqis walking aimlessly across the desert. The men are surprised as the enemy cheers them on. They advance and maneuver nearly unimpeded for 2 full days. But that won't last forever. Somewhere out there to the east, the Tawakana Republican Guard lies in wait. A much more loyal unit that will not surrender so easily. The 2nd ACR are tasked with hunting them down. The men awake the following day to miserable weather. A sandstorm has rolled in overnight, greatly reducing visibility.
Holy shit! What beautiful weather! Skog, wanna go outside? I'm good, thanks. Alright, how are the Eagles doing? Anyone?
Waiting for orders, sir. What's the plan?
Okay, here it is, gentlemen. In a moment, we will receive permission to carry the attack forward. We push to the 70 Easting.
Only 6 miles?
Yep, and don't engage. We find the enemy, we step aside, and allow the 1st Infantry Division and 3rd Armored Division behind us to take them on. Should be easy, but you know anything can happen. Stand by for orders. Out.
His men don't have to be told twice. The entire troop is itching for action. And sure enough, the go-ahead promptly arrives.
Battle stations, battle stations. This is Black 6. The word has been given. Red 1, execute.
Roger 6, executing now. I feel the need for speed.
You know that's $5 in the drink box for any film quotes.
Oh, come on. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
That's 10.
The engines roar and whirl to life, and 6 M2 Bradleys from the 1st platoon drive past the line of Abrams, taking their positions at the front, as the entirety of the 2nd ACR moves through the sandstorm in a miles-long formation, pushing into the unknown. McMaster hunkers down, observing the battlefield with his thermal sight, but nothing appears. Suddenly, there are loud explosions up ahead. McMaster and the rest of his men sweep the area with their binoculars and thermals. There are no contacts, but they quickly find the source. It's airburst artillery exploding in the air and raining shrapnel all across the ground. McMaster doesn't need to say anything. All on their own, the Bradleys and Abrams break the line to drive around the area of impact. A sense of pride fills McMaster. His boys are acting exactly as they've been trained. The artillery is evaded, and the line reforms as they push on. It's not long before something else catches his eye. Figures emerge through the haze. Buildings. McMaster narrows his eyes, thinking, this village looks off. There's no farm, pen, or any type of infrastructure to sustain a home. This, he thinks, must be an Iraqi outpost.
Village, direct front. 1 round, Pete, at my command!
The loader slams a high-explosive anti-tank shell into the breach. The anti-tank component won't be of much use, but the explosives are exactly what they need.
Ready? Report.
The tank's massive 120mm gun aims square at the structures. But McMaster doesn't fire just yet. He waits as his line gets closer, looking for civilians. Up and down the line, the rest of the tanks prepare to level the position. But still, they wait, for they see no evidence that the buildings belong to anyone at all. Suddenly, muzzle flashes shine from the windows and low-caliber bullets start raining down on the armored vehicles.
Fire! Fire!
McMaster's Abrams opens fire with a thunderous explosion. The round flies through the air, its aim impeccable. It hits a wall and detonates, reducing the building to rubble. The impact marks the target for the 8 other battle tanks, and their guns aim at the same construction.
Ready? Fire!
The 9 Abrams fire almost in unison with a deafening blast. In an instant, the buildings explode into a cloud of rubble and dust, violently silencing the small arms fire. Meanwhile, on the very edge of their formation, Bradleys, Eagle 13 and 16 spot 2 Iraqi T-72s sitting in ambush, with their thermal viewfinders.
Do we engage?
Chills traveled down the spine of the vehicle commanders.
Why are they still?
I don't think they see us.
Had the sandstorm not been covering their advance, they were unlikely to have won this showdown. But as it is, the enemy's lack of thermals keeps them blind in the storm, while the Bradleys can see them crystal clear. The Bradley's turret spins to face the enemy, a pair of TOW anti-tank missiles at the ready. A missile fires off its launcher, pulling a spool of wire along with it. From inside, the gunner keeps his crosshairs on the enemy tank, the computer guiding the missile through the wire and keeping it flying straight on the crosshair. From the sight, it looks like licks of flame hanging in the air for a few fleeting moments. The T-72 detonates with force as its turret flies sky high. The second Bradley fires off a second missile, aimed for the remaining enemy. The Iraqi crew barely reacted to the destruction of their companion. When they meet the same fate.
The turret of this T-72 came off and was flipping like a bottle cap in the air, and when it landed, the whole thing burst into flames. I remember thinking, holy, how can a piece of metal burn like that?
The troop resumes the advance, leaving behind T-72 wrecks and the obliterated buildings.
2 enemy tanks on the left flank. Targets eliminated.
McMaster knows these 2 tanks couldn't be alone, and senses that they're about to find exactly who they're looking for.
Red 1, this is Black 6. Swapping to tank lead. I repeat, changing to tank lead.
The Bradleys slow to a stop and allow the better armored Abrams tanks to go first. They form into an arrow formation, with McMaster proudly leading in the middle. They reach their target of the 70th Easting, but McMaster has a small crest up ahead, blocking their view.
Stay behind.
In flat terrain like this, even small crests are crucial for visibility, so without orders, he pushes on just a little more. His Abrams climbs the hill and rolls over the top of the crest. Looking through his thermal sight, he watches as dozens of heat signatures come into view all at once. They instantly meet a wall of dug-in armor, trenches, and anti-tank weapons, all facing their advance.
Tanks! Direct front!
It's a horrifying sight. The plan of not engaging the enemy has gone straight out the window.
Fire! Fire! Sabo!
Heat already loaded.
The crosshairs immediately land on a T-72 1.4 kilometers away, and the Abrams fires the first shot of Battle 73 Easting. But to McMaster's surprise, the giant line of Iraqi defense does not immediately retaliate. In the storm, the Iraqi tanks are completely blind and have no idea about the multiple Abrams actively rolling over their defensive embankment just a few hundred meters away. They scramble to respond, crews running for their tanks, diving into trenches, and fleeing to the rear. It's chaos.
Load Sabo! Up! Fire!
The armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding Sabo round fires off the Abrams barrel, the surrounding Sabo peeling off. Please support the channel, comment, like, and subscribe on this video. Releasing a massive depleted uranium dart traveling at 1,575 meters every second. It slams square on the enemy and it bursts into flames, cutting through the armor like butter and setting it aflame. McMaster continues to roll forward as the rest of his troop appears behind him. Abrams tanks open fire indiscriminately as the T-72s start to fight back. Rounds crash into the earth and zip over the Americans' heads. McMaster's driver, Christopher Skog Hedenskog, watches nervously out of the periscopes as he drives towards the enemy. He sees a muzzle flash from the front right, and a split second later, a round slams into the earth right next to their fender. McMaster's men see the strike and fear he's been hit.
Black 6! Black 6! Are you hit? Black 6! Black 6!
But then Skog spots a second T-72 emerging into the sights of their Abrams.
Hold on!
He turns hard to the left, throwing off everyone in the turret.
Ah!
They gather themselves and resume their positions.
Sir? Are you okay?
McMaster takes a second longer. He's hit his head on the edge of the cupola, completely missing the radio transmission calling for him.
Black 6, do you copy?
With their leader in silence and seemingly having taken a second enemy round, a desperate Red 1 takes the initiative.
This is Red 1. Black 6 is down. I'm taking over. Follow my lead.
Listening to this on the radio, Skog calls for his commander.
Sir, get up on the net. Red 1 just took over.
McMaster realizes what's happening and is quick to clear up the confusion.
This is Black 6. We're alive. I'm retaking command.
Meanwhile, outside is a flurry of sand, smoke, and fire. Enemy rounds keep missing the Abrams as they charge through the desert. On the Iraqi side, everything is in pure chaos. The Abrams roar past the shell-shocked Iraqis, firing round after round into the enemy armor. The Bradleys behind fire their cannons at trenches and infantry, struggling to distinguish between legitimate threats and defeated enemies. Driver Matt Lee follows his unit under fire when a person appears in front of him. Lee slams on the accelerator and steers towards him. The Bradley barrels towards a soldier at speed. The Iraqis, completely disoriented from the darkness of the storm and smoke of the battlefield, unaware as his body rapidly fills Lee's thermal imager. The speeding Bradley roars by, inches from the enemy. Lee made a split-second decision and decided that this enemy was no threat. Elsewhere in the battle, the advancing line of Bradleys are suddenly met with a column of tracers. The bright bullets ricochet everywhere, and two Bradleys focus on the source. A ZSU 23-4 Shilka anti-aircraft gun inside a bunker. They slow to a halt, and the first anti-tank missile rockets off its launcher, zipping across the battlefield. The anti-armor warhead detonates into the bunker, collapsing it. A second anti-tank missile flies in moments after, slamming into the ZSU and setting it alight. Across the line, the Bradley crews operate with incredible bravery. The missiles cannot be fired on the move, so Bradleys have to stop under fire to engage enemy armor. Eagle 31 comes to a halt while staring down the barrel of a reloading T-72. The American gunner fires off his missile and strikes the Iraqi tank, exploding it into a ball of flame, fractions of a second before it can do the same to the Bradley's crew. Meanwhile, another Bradley, Eagle 36, have used up their pair of anti-tank missiles and are still stuck in the middle of heavy fighting. They need more if they're to have a chance against the dozens of T-72s still somewhere out there in the dark.
Tribble, give me some toes.
Scout Michael Tribble takes a missile tube stowed in the rear and opens up the roof hatch to reload them. But the launcher is out of reach.
Can you get me the turret on 5950?
The turret needed to be rotated to 5950 mils to be able to reload from the hatch. But Tribble hears the response.
Negative. We're stuck like this.
The commander can't place the Bradley in a reloading position. They need the gun and armor facing the enemy. If Tribble's going to reload, he's going to have to go outside and do it. Tribble rushes out from safety. He can hear the hiss of rifle bullets zipping across the air, a few striking the Bradley's armor with loud clangs. But Tribble ignores it all. He discards the old tubes and casings and begins mounting the new ones. He hears the crack of bullets narrowly missing him, but he keeps his nerve at a time where a slip-up is the difference between life and death. The missiles are reloaded, and Tribble returns to the machine shouting,
"Done! Go! Go!"
With that, the roof hatch closes up, once more protecting Tribble from the chaos outside. The Bradley again lurches to life, charging for combat. Back at the front, the battlefield gradually calms down. Bradleys still fire their cannons amidst a flurry of small arms fire, clearing out trenches and destroying equipment as the platoon drives through the wrecks of the enemy. McMaster's executive officer comes on the radio, reminding him that 70 easting was the limit of advance, and they are way past it.
I can't stop. We're still in contact. Tell headquarters I'm sorry.
He cuts the transmission and returns to the task at hand. They've broken through their lines, but there has to be reserves somewhere in this storm. It doesn't take long for them to find them.
I see them!
He spots a group of enemy tanks with his thermal sights. 17 of them, all in a circle. They've attacked so fast the reserves haven't even had time to get out of their parking spots. McMaster orders all of the troops Abrams to bear.
Ready! Report!
They creep up on the enemy. He can clearly see an Iraqi tank commander standing on his hatch. The commander hears the Abrams and looks over his shoulder with an expression of utter horror on his face.
Fire!
In a flash, the strength of Eagle Troop is unleashed at the stationary targets. In just a minute, all 17 of the T-72 tanks are reduced to scrap.
Target destroyed!
The Bradleys in the rear continue to destroy enemy equipment and ammunition stashes, but the battle was effectively over. Anxiously, McMaster got on the radio to ask one question he feared the answer to.
How many casualties?
No casualties to report.
No casualties to report. No casualties to report.
They hadn't just won, they had crushed them. In just 23 minutes, this scouting force that wasn't even meant to engage the enemy had destroyed 50 T-72s, 25 armoured personnel carriers, 40 trucks, and a multitude of other vehicles of the Tawakalna Republican Guard, without losing a single man or vehicle. McMaster would be awarded the Silver Star for his actions. He's still alive today, and we hope he watches and likes our video. It's 25th of May 1982, and two pairs of Argentinian jets roar low over the Falkland Islands on their way to what could be a one-way mission. They're led by Captain Pablo Carballo, and he and his men are flying old and poorly equipped A4 Skyhawk jets loaded with bombs. Their mission is to destroy the British ships HMS Coventry and HMS Broadsword. The Argentinians have captured the Falkland Islands, or the Malvinas as they call them, and they need to destroy the ships if they're to hold on to them. The Argentinians know that two ships have moved closer to the islands to cover ground troops, islands that give them the chance to approach undetected by British radar.
Entrando a tu rango. No escalen por ninguna razón.
The Skyhawks fly as low as they dare, hugging the contours of the island as they reach the enemy's radar range. The two ships are equipped with advanced anti-air missiles and powerful radars which have been devastating to the Argentinian planes. The only way to evade detection is to stay low. On board HMS Coventry, Captain David Hart Dyke has his men on high alert. British Special Forces have warned him that the Argentinians have recently launched on a mission, but he's unaware that this time, his ship is the target. 4 detections on the radar screen confirms his worst fears.
Full contacts bearing 225, range 30.
Captain Hart Dyke immediately orders a crew to action stations and alarms blare on both ships. And swiftly, the mighty Sea Dart's surface-to-air missiles turn to bear. The Skyhawks, at the same time, approach Pebble Island and hug its contours. With expert flying, the Argentinians become invisible to the British radar, and on the Coventry, the contacts disappear.
Contacts lost over Pebble Island.
It's precisely what Captain Hart Dyke feared. Pebble Island is too close. The Sea Darts have a minimum range, so now they'll only be able to fire once, if they're lucky. Hart Dyke gets on the radio to Broadsword.
Broadsword, what is your status?
HMS Broadsword is equipped with shorter-range Seawolf missiles, better suited for a close-range fight. On the Skyhawks, Carballo brings his men as close to the ships as he can under cover of the land. His planes have no radar and no warning systems, but at 10 nautical miles distance, they can see the British ships.
Comenzando el ataque. Buena suerte, capitán.
He and his wingman, Lieutenant Carlos Rinque, make the charge and accelerate to maximum speed while skimming the waves. Aboard Coventry, the two Skyhawks immediately light up their radar.
2 hostiles bearing 192 low level.
To add to the confusion, a British Harrier jump jet reports in. It's in the firing zone.
Captain, friendly aircraft 20 miles out.
A British plane and enemies in the same airspace. Should he fire? In a split-second decision, he chooses the missiles.
Turn the Harrier away. Shoot missiles.
But the operators still can't get a lock. The Argentinians are flying extremely low, mere feet from the sea. Carballo's canopy is covered in sea salt as he soars through the spray, so low that the radars struggle to track them. Aboard the Coventry, the men's hearts race as they see the enemy getting ever closer. The Sea Dart missiles are failing to lock. Captain Hart Dyke feels the dread of a wrong decision, praying for Broadsword's Seawolf missiles to do the job. Aboard Broadsword, the men can see the targets. The Skyhawks are flying so close, the Seawolf's radar detects them as a single aircraft. They lock the target as the Argentinians barrel down towards them. But then, the single contact splits into two, and the two sets of coordinates crash the missile guidance system.
The missiles are not responding! Restart them!
There's no time. Lookouts aboard Coventry see the Skyhawks with the naked eye and shout with alarm. In a last-ditch effort, HMS Coventry's deck guns turn to bear and open fire, soon joined by the roar of personal machine guns and rifles, sailors firing from all across the deck. Carballo sees the splashes of the shells striking the sea and the tracers of the British bullets drawing closer, refining their aim. The enemy ship is right there. He can taste victory. But the shells are getting closer. He can feel it. They're not going to make it.
Cambiar otro!
He orders to swap targets, setting his sights on Broadsword. The two planes pull to the side and away from Coventry's guns, roaring by her deck as they line up their pass. The two Skyhawks pull the triggers and their 1,000-pound bombs are released. They fall down into the sea and splash onto the ocean surface. It redirects them upwards as they bounce, skipping like stones. Broadsword's sailors see the two massive bombs bounce twice as they head down towards them. One bomb hits the sea and sinks short of the Broadsword, but the other doesn't. It punches straight into the side of Broadsword. It's deflected upwards and it bursts out of the deck. It flies on, tumbling as it falls into the sea, without exploding. Carballo is dismayed, but they're not done yet. Coming in behind them is the second flight of First Lieutenant Mariano Angel Velasco and Ensign Jorge Nelson Barranuevo. They are equipped with less powerful but more reliable 250-kilogram bombs. Aboard the British ship, they now see all four contacts on the radar, and Captain Hart Dyke orders an immediate turn to starboard to allow the missiles to fire at all contacts. Coventry's missile operators get a lock on Velasco, and the Sea Darts turn directly towards them.
Shoot!
There's a bright flash on Coventry's deck, and the missile rockets out in a plume of smoke. Just as it does, Velasco and his wingman fly lower and lower over the water. They disappear from the British radar, and the missile goes straight. The sailors are aghast as the missile loses track and flies away. Velasco sees the missile fly off 500 meters to his right, but his eyes are locked on HMS Coventry. As he fast approaches, Broadsword, meanwhile, is restarting the missile systems as the Skyhawks fly in towards them. Sailors nervously stare at blank screens as they're on a race between the Skyhawk and the rebooting computers.
Come on!
The screens come to life and the sailors get to work. The Skyhawks are detected and appear on the Seawolf radar. The launches turn and the target is locked. But then, on their screens, they see HMS Coventry sail directly in front of the launcher.
The Coventry is in the way!
In their rush to cover all targets, they've blocked the only missiles that could actually fire. The Broadsword's captain tries to maneuver to get a clear shot, but it's just too late. In the Skyhawks, Velasco and Barranuevo are approaching their target. On the Coventry, Captain Hart Dyke orders all turrets fire at will. Cannons and machine guns join in, firing with everything they've got at the incoming planes. The main 4.5-inch gun is sending its shells towards the sea. The men realize the sights are misaligned, but that's not the only malfunction. At the same time, the 20mm anti-air gun jams. The men desperately try to fix it as the Argentinian planes close. In a desperate attempt, sailors all across the ship open fire with their rifles. The sea churns and splashes as everything the British have is directed towards the advancing Skyhawks. But it's all too late. echo over the intercom, and commanding officers order everyone to hit the deck. Men jump for cover and hold on, waiting for the inevitable. Velasco sees the enemy ship fill his view and pulls the trigger. His A4's 20mm cannons are unleashed, spraying a volley of lead across the ship's deck and superstructure. He holds the trigger down as long as he can. Then he releases his payload. The bombs fall away, arcing lazily across the air before slamming into HMS Coventry with force. They punch through the hull, the impact echoing through the ship as two almost hollow thunks. But there's no explosion. The second A4 roars overhead without dropping its bombs, the payload failing to release. Seconds drag on. The men start to get back up, looking around with fear and confusion. A voice comes through the intercom reporting damage, but they never get to finish their sentence. The bombs detonate. Two huge explosions rock HMS Coventry. In the air, the Argentinian pilots are elated to see smoke pouring from the Coventry. They've done it. One explosion right under the bridge breaks a massive hole in the side of the ship and destroys the computer room. The fire moves up through corridors and blasts through the operations room, where all the operators and Captain Hart Dyke were working. The second one explodes in the forward engine room, starting a massive fire and taking out electrical and propulsion power from the ship. Captain Hart Dyke comes back to his senses. He's surrounded by smoke and destruction. Screams fill the air. He tries to see who's making them, but they appear to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He staggers to his feet and realizes the ship is listing. He attempts to use his intercom, but is completely dead. It's no use. He needs to get out. Captain Hart Dyke slowly works his way through the smoke and corridors as he listens to the ship groaning and cracking underneath him. He manages, somehow, to find an exit and emerges into the cool air of the South Atlantic. Now on deck, he's filled with concern for his men, but instead of chaos, he's met by an extremely professional evacuation. His team of sailors practiced this and are now springing into action. Men rescue their fellow sailors from the smoke-filled cabins and provide medical attention on deck, as others prepare the survival rafts and help more sailors put on their survival gear. Hart Dyke feels the deck shift beneath his feet as the hull lists. He's dazed and wounded, and amidst the chaos, he has to sit down on the rapidly listing hull, while others abandon the ship. All but Captain Hart Dyke. After all the men have gone, Hart Dyke is alone on the upturned hull of the Coventry. He casts one last look around the smoking ship. He's done his duty. And finally, as the last man aboard, he enters the last survival raft and drifts away from his command. Due to the professionalism of the British, 170 survivors would be picked up from the water by HMS Broadsword and the British rescue helicopters, but tragically, 19 lost their lives in the battle. All of the Argentinian pilots make it back to base and land successfully. They'd done it, but their victory did not turn the tide of the war. It's August the 18th, 1981. Off the coast of Libya, two MiG-25s from the Libyan Air Force race out to sea. An American carrier group has just entered their national waters and launched dozens of fighter jets into the sky. War, it seems, has dawned upon these waters. The Libyan pilot steels himself, laser focused on the battle ahead, when he sees something out of the corner of his eye. He turns his head in shock. To his left is an American F-14 Tomcat flying alongside him. He stares at the enemy pilot in complete disbelief as he gives him back a mocking wave, and to add further insult, the man on the back seat takes a picture. The Libyan pilot finds himself completely outclassed. He knows the Americans operate in pairs. The second jet must be already behind him with his missiles at the ready. pilot Lawrence Muczynski and radio intercept officer James Anderson watch amused as the Libyan MiG-25s turn back to base. They joke and laugh, joined by their commander Henry Kleeman and his RIO David Venlet as they return back to the Nimitz. In reality, the American forces have no intention of war or bloodshed, even if they know they're flirting with the possibility. The Libyan government had declared the Gulf of Sidra to be part of their territory, while the United States and many others consider it to be international waters. Because of this disagreement, the US has decided to sail through the disputed territory, challenging the Libyan claim. The first day had gone swimmingly for the Americans, with their fighters turning away 70 Libyan aircraft without a single shot being fired. Kleeman particularly enjoyed interacting with the Libyan pilots, later describing the day as all fun and games. Little did he know that things would become much more serious. Kleeman and Muczynski are back in the sky very early in the morning the following day. Call sign Fast Eagle 102 and 107 respectively. They've been patrolling for over an hour when an unidentified contact headed straight towards them appears on their screens. The experience of the prior day has them quite comfortable, so Kleeman in Fast Eagle 102 calmly reports the contact before heading to meet it. The two planes adopt an intercept formation, with Muczynski in Fast Eagle 107 putting some distance from his flight leader. Kleeman is the first to get visual with the enemy, spotting not one, but two Libyan Su-22 fitters flying wingtip to wingtip straight towards him. At that very moment, Muczynski's radar malfunctions and he loses the ping of the enemy fighters, but he's undeterred. He can intercept with visual only. But then, the maneuver turns from routine to horror when he sees an orange flash from under one of the Su-22's wings and a smoke trail streaking out towards Kleeman. They've just fired a missile. In a state of disbelief, he reports,
"Two fitters have shot at my leader."
Kleeman sees the missile coming and instantly pulls hard to the left. The missile flies right past him, followed moments later by the pair of enemy fighters.
"This is 102. We've been fired on."
Thinking on his feet, he orders 107 to get after the one who shot. Muczynski instantly races into the fray, turning around 180 degrees and ending up right on the six of the two Libyans. The enemy pilots scatter in separate directions, but Muczynski has his eyes locked on the lead fitter. He chases him across the sky, matching the Libyan through every twist and turn. He selects his AIM-9AL Sidewinder missiles and pulls the trigger. But nothing happens. An alert flashes on his screen. The missile is faulty and won't fire. Meanwhile, Kleeman has already turned around and is catching up to the second enemy. He's about to fire when the Libyan fighter makes a turn towards the sunrise. Kleeman realizes in a split second that the heat-seeking Sidewinder could lock onto the heat of the sun, so he patiently waits for the enemy fighter to change direction. It's 10 long seconds until the Libyan pilot finally makes a turn, and his fate is sealed. The missile lights up and rockets off from under 102's wing. He can see the smoke trail as it tracks to perfection and slams straight into the engine of the Su-22, shredding its tail and starting a fire. The burning wreckage falls from the sky, and the pilot ejects. On board Muczynski's Tomcat, the radar intercept officer spots Kleeman's target falling in the distance and shouts,
"Someone's been hit! Someone's been shot!"
Muczynski turns his head to see the column of black smoke falling into the sea below. Worry fills him for a second as he can't tell who it is. But to his immediate relief, he hears the voice of Kleeman over the radio, reporting his victory.
"Affirmative. Shot one of them down."
With the Su-22 still ahead and with the gravity of their actions heavy in his mind, Muczynski asks on the radio,
"Want me to shoot my guy down?" "That's affirm. Shoot him. Shoot him down."
Muczynski doesn't need to be told twice. He's chasing the Libyan through a right-hand turn when he pulls the trigger. His second and last Sidewinder rockets away, but goes dead straight, exiting stage left from Muczynski's field of view. Frustrated, but without time to think, he switches to guns and resolves to shoot the fitter out of the sky. But before he can even try, the missile zips past his field of view. It chases down the Libyan jet and detonates into its fuselage. Fire and shrapnel fill the sky ahead, and Muczynski yanks back on the stick. He's squished into his seat as he pulls an enormous 10 Gs, barely avoiding the cloud of debris. Both pilots are recovering from the adrenaline when the news of their peril finally reaches command at the Nimitz. They hear through the radio.
102, 107, you are clear to defend yourself.
Kleeman proudly responds,
"And this is 102, 107, 2 enemy kills."
Fortunately, both Libyan pilots, Captain Balkasem Emsik al-Zintani and First Lieutenant Mokhtar al-Arabi al-Jafari, ejected and survived the encounter. They were picked up by Libyan rescue helicopters an hour after the events. Further escalation was avoided, and the takedown of the 2 Su-22s remained the only combat in the entirety of the operation, which remained bloodless. Kleeman and Muczynski returned to much fanfare among their peers, but received no awards. The incident would go on to have little political impact. It further strained the already terrible US-Libyan relations, but brought about little action from either government. The events of that day would be studied by the writers of Top Gun, who used it and other engagements as inspiration for the movie's combat scenes. Fast Eagle 102 went on to be restored by a group of veterans in 2016. It's now on display in the Midland Army Airfield Museum, where you can visit it in Texas. Thanks for staying until the end. If you're looking for more incredible stories, don't miss our previous compilation, War in the Pacific.